Welcome to Better Futures.
In which you needed to escape the negative emotions at all costs.
And the irony is that the more we can become willing to suffer, the less we are in torment. And the more we are willing to be bothered by things, the less we're troubled by them. Because being bothered is just, I don't like this. Something is not lining up with my values, or it's physically painful, or whatever. But being troubled means not only am I bothered, but there's something wrong with me for feeling bothered. And so I need to try to change my feeling.
That just does not sound like a good procedure for discovering what makes life actually meaningful. It's just replacing a negative emotion with a superficial substitute.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people who are depressed too, when they talk to whoever's helping them about it, they don't actually always say, I'm sad all the time. A lot of times they say, I don't feel anything, or they say life has lost its meaning. And I can see why that would happen, because our negative emotions are meaningful. And if you're too successful in invalidating or ignoring the negative emotions, then yeah, life will lose its meaning.
Wow, I see the paradox, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a fun catch-22 to explore, though.
It has been enriching for me to explore it.
I can tell that it's been enriching. I'm particularly interested in how we can promote just abiding with negative feelings and using displeasure with circumstances to discover what makes life meaningful for us. How we can promote that point of view when the supercultural narrative is more like, no, that's something to be medicated away, that kind of thing.
Here's where it gets really tricky and exciting, I think. Practicing this on the meta level. So we're talking about belief systems here, and belief systems are not easily amenable to change. And that's probably a good thing. I can't imagine what being human would be like if you could easily change a belief system. So they only can change once. It's like learning a language. You have a lot of practice, a lot of exposure, a lot of progress and regress and all that stuff. So one of the things that leads to clients abandoning coaching sometimes, I mean, it depends on the client, but one thing that can lead to somebody just abandoning it is because of the perfectionism. We expect things to go quickly and easily, and we expect to accomplish that by using the same belief system that is the problem. So let me try to make it more concrete. Like, somebody could come in and they could start telling me high expectations, and I'm hearing a lot of perfectionism. And if I point out maybe these expectations are unreasonably high, and maybe we have a sense of humor about it, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of do beat up on myself and I'm really hard on myself. In the first session or first week or month or whatever, with me, they could have a sense of humor about it. But when they start talking to themselves about it, they're probably going to beat up on themselves about beating up on themselves. It's really hard to have the different paradigm where you take a middle of the road, slow and imperfect approach. So like what I think would be effective if we were going to try to promote alternatives to the idea that you should never have negative emotions would be kind of it's like, well, it makes sense to want to feel good. It makes sense to try to keep your your morale up. Nothing wrong with that. That's okay. It's not a problem in itself that you want to feel good or you want to have high morale. But there might be a point at which, if you try too hard to do that, you will miss out on the meaning that would come from listening to the negative emotions. We're aiming for a balance of hopefulness and hopelessness, depending on the circumstances, because they're both appropriate.
And the circumstances will change. You can be hopeful one day, hopeless the next, and hopeful and hopeless at the same time about different circumstances. I've heard a lot about being so connected digitally, but I'm also really interested in the material conditions of the homogenized landscape that you used to enjoy quite a bit more on road trips. And the homogenized culture too. I'm wondering, when we lack alternative spaces in which to even come across something promoting the acceptance of negative feelings and promoting the use of them to discover meaning, how we address the market dominance that the supercultural narrative has with the importance of seeming happy.
It helps to picture what the pendulum swing would look like and then try to not do the pendulum swing. So the pendulum swing would be to be really heavy-handed in a generalized and indiscriminate way with our critique. And that is not likely to catch the attention of the people that we most want to catch their attention. It's got to make sense to the person who's hearing it. And if they hear something that critiques, maybe it's their identity or their way of life or something that actually works for them. Maybe it's somebody who's like gets a lot out of working in advertising, or they're happy with how their job in banking is going, or whatever it is. If we come at it with a heavy-handed punk rock protest, they're probably going to internally double down on what they think because they're defending their own self-esteem. And the way that we're doing it is not leaving any room for the fact that something actually is good in what they're achieving or what they're aiming. With everything, there's something that works that we can validate, and then there's something that doesn't work. And if we can do both of those things, people are more likely to listen than if we only invalidate and come at it with drawing a line in the sand sort of thing.
Okay, because I was going to ask what kind of validations you see with stock market manipulators, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, those things personally for me don't have a lot of value, but taking care of your own life, taking care of your family, enjoying life, being able to buy the things that are meaningful to you, those are the things that money brings. And so I can validate why somebody would do something that brings them money. And I can also have appreciation for the fact that somebody might not have noticed the same problems that I notice, especially if they're within the system. If they grew up in a stock market family and they work at the stock market and they're good at the stock market, they might not be used to thinking about what problems are there with the stock market itself or with the economy itself. And I can understand that. I can't help the things that I am able to notice at this moment.
Very understanding, of course, because I would expect myself more likely to attack them in some way.
You're saying you would attack them?
I would expect myself to be quite judgmental of someone who, due to a simple birth lottery, had that security of wealth and neglected to see how that wealth is in many ways built on exploitative economic systems established as such by the United States government. Just to kind of summarize my beliefs and the judgments that result from them.
I think these are some of the most important problems for humanity to work on. And I feel very judgmental about the problems, and I feel disgust about it and an urgency to work on it. So one thing I think also helps to think about is the fact that judgments are good. None of us human beings would be here if we didn't have judgments, negative evaluations of our situations and other people. So if I'm thinking to myself, this guy's an asshole, what that really means is I think, based on what I've seen, I think this guy might be a threat to my needs or to other people's needs. And so my quick evolution-oriented brain is doing something adaptive by saying, that guy's an asshole, get out of here, or use protective force to try to stop this guy from doing whatever he's doing. But I think we're at a point now in humanity where we've excelled at the quick judgments, and now we have some problems left to solve that are better resolved using slow thinking. My judgments are good. But if I share my judgments with that guy, if I say, hey, you're an asshole, and imply that I think he should think of himself as an asshole, things are probably going to get worse. He's probably not going to say, oh, you're right, I am an asshole. Thanks for showing me the error of my ways. He's probably going to double down and say, no, you're an asshole, or, I'm going to eliminate you, or whatever it is. So a style of communicating that is more slow and more careful is called for if we want it to work.
You've certainly persuaded me to consider it. I didn't have an argument in the opposite direction, but I'm also aware of how quickly all of this noise spreads throughout the various echo chambers.
Yeah, and these are such major problems that are worth being depressed, worth being worried about. And I'm depressed and worried about them. But by depressed, I don't mean that I am using that in the sense of having an emotional problem where I'm trying really hard not to be depressed. Kind of the opposite. I'm saying, yeah, this is really appropriate to be depressed about this. It feels kind of hopeless. These are such major problems that spread so quickly given our technology. And the general populace seems so... I'm not hearing anybody else talking about them, that it seems hopeless. And so I might as well feel that feeling. And now, making sense of the feeling of hopelessness, I know that I need a new breakthrough. The solutions that I'm currently aware of don't seem like they're going to work. So now I'm on the lookout for a different solution. And that's the value of hopelessness.
That's the value of hopelessness.